Hello, and welcome to another edition of NCI Live. I'm your host, David Groth, and joining me today is one of my favorite guests, Abby Hansen. She is the Modern Workplace Practice Leader at Ingram Micro. Welcome, Abby. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks so much for having me, David. I'm in Austin, Texas for an event, and it's always fun to hop online and talk Microsoft with you.
It's always a pleasure to have you. We really appreciate you coming on, and we're going to have a lot of exciting things to talk about today. So for those of you who haven't joined us, we do invite you. This is a live show, so if you want to message us questions, we're live on both YouTube and LinkedIn. So please feel free to send us your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them live on air. And so with that, the topic today is modern work trends and predictions. So let's start talking about modern work, where we're at, where we're going. what's happening. A lot of things happening right now. So, what do you think? Let's first talk about what is modern work for those people. I mean, they're tuning in all the time, but there might be a few people who haven't actually know what modern work is. What is your definition of modern work?
Yeah, I think it's just really the ability to work, any place, anytime, anywhere,
Mhm.
by and making sure you have the right tools to be successful from a collaboration, security, and now AI perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, things are constantly being added, and we're specifically talking about the Microsoft aspects of it today. Pardon me. But modern work is, as a philosophy, has been around for a while now and is even growing
Mhm.
more and more and more. And Microsoft just regularly adds to it. So I love that. Um, what So we're talking about kind of both the modern work aspect and also the AI aspect. Um, and we're trying to talk about the trends presently and what's happening. Now, obviously, AI has been a hot buzzword, and specifically Microsoft's aspect, which is Copilot.
Mhm.
Where do you see Copilot now? What do you see happening with Copilot right now?
Oh my goodness, it's such a loaded question.
Oh,
There
yeah,
are
it
so
is.
many, like Microsoft, I think at one point they said there's going to be 14 total co-pilots. I wouldn't be surprised if there's even more than that moving forward. But when we really think about Microsoft 365 Copilot, it's changing the way that we work every single day. And it's funny because I was in a meeting yesterday and a couple of the those people were like, I'm scared. Why are you scared? Right? AI is always going to need the human element at the end of the day. You're still going to have a job at the end of the day. It's just how do we work more productively and effectively and efficiently across the board to be able to do more? And when I speak to customers, it's really about how can AI help you help your customer better or grow your business from that perspective. And I don't know, I love it. They say that, and I agree, I would give up a free lunch to have Copilot. I'm a Starbucks addict. I can proclaim that. I would actually give up coffee to keep Copilot. And that's a big thing because I'm like right now averaging 3 to 5 cups a day. So I love it.
I mean, I love Copilot, but I don't know if I could give up coffee. That would be a tough sell.
Right?
Yeah. Um, to that end, I mean, I'll have to agree with you and say that Copilot specifically and AI in a general sense is not and tell me, disagree with me, feel free to disagree with me, but it's not a replacement for anything. It's a tool. Just
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
word processing, Word in this case, did not replace writing, right? It did not, it just made it better, easier, faster.
Mhm.
And Copilot
Yeah,
makes, let's say, content creation or manipulation or what have you faster, better, easier.
it does.
It still requires that human element and knowledge of how to use it. That's maybe a key piece
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah, and I think you break it up into like different facets, right? The knowledge piece is great. Like everybody can download the Copilot app on your phone
Mm,
where you're able to ask questions, right? And a good friend of mine is a football coach. I won't say where he's from, but he was to the point of recruitment of new players, right? Like they were forming their team, and he was like, Abby, can you find out for me the statistics on these three quarterbacks that we're trying to bring onto the team? And so I was able to actually pull up that player. It showed me what university they went to, what high school they went to, and all their statistics. And we were able to compare that data side by side so that once they came in, the coaching staff actually had enough information to look at those players and see if they're a good fit for their team. And so
yeah.
that's just one of the ways, right? Another way with the free Copilot app is I was at a partner customer meeting a couple weeks ago, and the customer asked a question and I knew the answer, but I wanted to reconfirm my answer. And so I was like, I'm just taking notes in OneNote, but I'm actually in Copilot asking these questions. And by the time the conversation was done or we were talking, I had everything I needed to look, intelligent at that conversation. And so just that piece of it, I think changes the conversation that we have because it pulls in everything from every angle.
Sure.
And then once you get into the productivity tools, I mean, that's a game changer. You know, You look at a healthcare customer, for example, they're using Excel to do data analytics and pull in different access points into one document to look at trends and budgeting and forecasting. A marketing company is now using PowerPoint different because you're able to build presentations in a faster manner.
Yeah.
And Word, I love Word. So I was at an event a couple of weeks ago in Michigan, and the son of the owner was like, "Hey, Abby, I have to write a speech." And I was like, "Oh, well, I bet Copilot could do that for you, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And you're probably thinking, "Oh, you're helping this poor boy cheat, right?"
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, "Well, why don't we do something on Minecraft and how Minecraft invokes STEM for math and science?" And so I put into Word, write a speech on Minecraft and how it invokes STEM. And it did 3 pages. And this kid's eyes were like humongous, right? And he's like, "Can I have that?" And I said, "Nope, you got to go do your own research, but
Mm-hmm.
see what it can do." And he was like, "Come on, Abby." So, but
My
it's
favorite story,
crazy.
my favorite story about Word, Copilot, AI, whatever you want to talk, specifically Copilot, is I was doing something unrelated. Matter of fact, it was Teams work with a local church. And there were several people from the church there, and they were attending. And I'm like, "Have you guys seen Copilot yet?" Because they were seeing the icon. And they're like, "What is that? What does it do?" And I'm like, "Oh, let me show you something." And I said, basically, I just put into Word, draft a sermon about on the topic of forgiveness using appropriate. So you have to be kind of, you know,
Hmm.
talk about the data
Prescriptive.
and everything else, descriptive.
Yeah.
It wrote a, I don't know, 2, 3 page, 4 page sermon. And it even ended, the kicker was that it ended it with, "Let us pray." So like how you would normally end a sermon and so on.
Hmm.
So it even got that context of it. So I mean, yeah. I think we could talk about, the use cases a lot, but when it comes down to putting it back into the focus of what we're talking about,
Hmm.
um, the trends are going to be, we're going to be using this. There's no question about it.
Hmm.
I mean, to varying degrees, everybody, whether you be content producing, or you mentioned 14 different products from Microsoft of what do you see as being those other uses of Copilot that aren't just content producing or research? What do you see some of those other pieces being?
Yeah, so it really goes across the board. And first of all, it's important to know like we have use cases for personas in your organization, right? It's not
Mhm.
just like the type of industry you're in, but what your job functionality is from marketing, sales, finance, etc. But when we look at the other co-pilots that are coming out, there's Copilot for Security that was just released on April 1st, and they're
Love that.
saying that the threat detection goes from hours to minutes. And when we look at how much cyber threats and phishing is on the rise, I think it's like 686% was the last statistics that I heard. Being able to protect your house or your business, it's super important, right? So to be able to
Yep.
have that functionality in your environment is great. There's Copilot for sales. So if you're a sales organization, you put that into your Outlook and you're able to track everything into your CRM solution. There's
Yep.
going to be Copilot for finance being released. There's fabric, I mean, coding, there's everything across the board when it comes to Copilot. And so they're making it so you can do your job better. It's not here to replace your job. You're always going to need that human element, but really here to help things become more smooth for you.
Certainly.
Hmm.
So now here's a question that I get, but I also like to, get other people's perspective on. So Copilot obviously has, these abilities to do generation of content, but also analysis. Like you mentioned, Copilot for Security, that's going to be, I mean, I've
Hmm.
seen the demo, and it is truly, it's going to be next gen stuff for the security providers, as well as those that integrate with like Defender and everything in Microsoft. But the question I go to is, um, what do we, we're looking at what do we have today, right? What do we need to kind of predict or get put in place for Copilot? Because right now, Copilot does integrate with our local, our stuff that's in
Hmm.
365, as well as you mentioned was it, I want to say graph, because it's graph, but there's also, was it graph you mentioned? Or,
Fabric.
yep, fabric, yes.
Hmm.
So it's integrating with those pieces as well. What do you see happening with that?
Well, I think and you're talking about like the overall environment, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So when you look at the overall environment when it comes to AI and Copilot, you do have to be a cloud customer. Things cannot be on-prem. And that's really important. And customers are like, well, can I do a hybrid environment? Well, if you are looking at Copilot, unfortunately, things have to be in the cloud to work with each other. You have to make sure you have a strong data governance practice in play, meaning groups, policies, everything is locked down behind the scenes. And this is important because you don't want to internal hack your business. And I use this terminology a lot because if you expose data that's not supposed to be exposed to employees that aren't supposed to see it, you could get sued by your employees. And maybe in a year you may not be there, right? And so it's important to know that first, lock your data, clean up your data. It's actually a great time to clean up your data. A lot of
True.
organizations have 10 to 15 years of data that they're not even using anymore, right? So cleanup is always nice. Then you're
Right.
going to want to make sure you have the workloads in the cloud. And SharePoint and OneDrive are super critical because when you're pulling data in, especially through Microsoft 365 Copilot, it's going to use that internal data to documents and presentations. You might pull some outside sources in. It'll even cite the outside sources. So
Yep.
SharePoint, OneDrive. You're going to want to make sure you don't really need the new Outlook anymore, but they're recommending it because they
Yep.
built the functionality into the new Outlook.
Right.
And Microsoft Teams Copilot, when it's in there, it's life changing. Like I
Yeah.
can't
I
even
use it every day.
explain how much it's awesome, right?
Yep.
Yeah, to be able to recap a meeting, send notes, things like that. So, and then really knowing like what applications you have access to, like Copilot for Forms just came out. If you haven't used that one, you can go in and say, write a survey for, this is my audience, so just knowing how to use it. You want to adopt it. I always recommend to customers, if you're unsure, do a pilot.
Yep.
Get 10 licenses for your organization and create champions. Maybe you have an internal IT department. If you don't, network center is great, right? Let's make sure you're using them for IT, but put 2 in marketing, 2 in sales,
Yep.
2 in finance, 2 to general people that would use it and get them excited about it.
Yep.
Most say that, they never want to give it up because it changes the way
Yep.
that they work, helps them become more productive, and even invokes that creativity across the board.
Yep. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more, that the days of, I'm not saying they're over, nor will they be over, but the power that's becoming in the, how do you want to put it? Orders of magnitude when it comes to power and tool sets and other things are
Yeah.
are definitely built more in the cloud, for 365 and stuff. So getting your data there and then being able to govern it and things like even compliance tools and other things, all of those things can be done en masse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Copilot is just another tool that you're adding on. But knowing what data you have is key. I'm going to
Yes.
just pause for a second, and remind everybody that we are live. If you have questions for us about any of the modern work things, Copilot, what's happening, what's going to be happening, please go ahead and chat us. Enter your message in the chat on either LinkedIn or YouTube. All right. So, what other when we talk about, I'm going to pull it back again to some modern work pieces. What have you seen in, let's say, um, like some of the employee well-being things that are in modern work, like Viva, for example? And a lot of people don't even know what Viva is, but like being able to look at your workforce as a whole. What do you see happening there? Do you see people increasing adoption, decreasing adoption?
Yeah, well, it's part of the AI strategy. I think everything comes back to that, right? But
It
having
does,
like
yeah, no question.
Viva Wellbeing is nice to be able to put focus time on your calendar. I think because we are in this hybrid world still, I know a lot of people are going back to the office, but it's important to take time for you. It's time to say, it's time to breathe or stand up or go for a walk, right? And I know I'm guilty of this because I usually have 3 meetings in a 30-minute period, right? And it's just like, how much can I get done in a day? But it's important to put that focus time on your calendar. Viva Learning is awesome. So you're actually able to go out to Viva Learning and learn additional skills. I know there's going to be I think it's released this week. I'm hearing a Viva Copilot Academy. And so there's just a lot of great things that Viva can, bring to the table. Even telling you how much time you spent in meetings, I think it raises awareness to, oh my gosh, I might be a little overworked, right? And we're at the time when people aren't hiring and we have to do more work than we need to at the moment. And so really, how do we organize ourselves from that perspective?
I mean, and being so busy that you don't have the time to look at how busy you are.
Right.
That's really the problem. And Copilot can be sitting behind you going, hey, look, I see that you've got all these meetings scheduled, and I'm going to help you by putting some time on your calendar to get work done. But I'm also going to put a few minutes here and there for you to just, okay, let's settle for a minute, just take a minute. Make sure
Right.
you get some lunch. You actually get some food. I
Yeah.
mean, I've been guilty of that too, where it's like, look, I got to work through my lunch hour so I can get these things out today because I got to go today.
Yeah.
So,
And even the Viva Connections, right? It connects the employees with tools and the resources that they need to be successful.
yep.
Helps you display content tailored to individual needs versus organization needs. So there's a ton there as well. And then even the Viva Engage, that brings people together across the organization that might not know each other. Like today, Viva told me, hey, it's so and so's birthday. You might want to reach out and say happy birthday, right? And I think employee morale is super important. So I think it helps boost that too from that perspective. And so really pulling everything together is, I think, super important.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think that the combination of being able to not only use the tools you have now, because the tools you have some of these tools now as modern work environment, but they're manual, and so you still have to go in and do them. Whereas Copilot, I think they really chose a good name. It's a Copilot that can sit next to you, going, "Let me take that from you. Let me go ahead and take over that and help you use those modern work tools that you have, and use them to their fullest capacity." Schedule management. You mentioned the Copilot for sales, helping you as a sales rep do more, or use the tools that you have to their fullest ability. I love that.
Right.
That's an awesome idea.
Right.
Um, so what do you see either now or coming up a particular group that might use Copilot more? I mean, I know that's maybe a difficult question because we can say everybody can use it, but do you see a group that can use it, say, more? Like department or group or
I think everybody can use it, from a seller to, like, imagine being in the Salesforce, right? And you
Mhm.
need to create a quick presentation to give to a client. Viva or a Microsoft Copilot is going to help you do that, right? To a
Mhm.
financial department, we were having a conversation with a nonprofit the other day, and they needed to examine the budget for the last 5 years. So they put together through Excel documents the budgets from the last 5 years. They looked at trends. Where did spend go? Where do we need to invest in new spend, right? And that same nonprofit actually does a lot of grant proposals. And so through Copilot, in that state, we were able to pull grant proposals that were approved from other nonprofits with the same terminology to write their current grant proposal in hopes of getting it to pass quicker, right? And so you can look at, a vice president, they have a lot on their plate. They don't have
Sure.
time to do presentations or read through documents and manage getting a contract through PDF. You can actually convert that and say, hey, Copilot, can you bullet point all of this for me? And so it's really applicable to everyone in your organization.
Certainly.
So,
We do have a question. We do
yeah.
have a question for our listeners. And this specifically pertains to the question is for low code and no code. And they're referring to, can you provide some examples of how organizations might be leveraging the Power Platform, which they just kind of changed the name to I'm sorry, I've already forgotten the name. The Power Platform for Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI,
Mhm.
to improve productivity, collaborations, and business intelligence as part of the modern work. Um, I have my own examples, but I'd like to hear from you first.
Go ahead and go first. I'll wait for you.
So,
Yeah.
what I'm seeing, a combination of things. So, first of all, organizations are using it to do things where they would have a team of developers come in and say, okay, management or a department head or something would say, I want, let's say, an app to do X. They would talk to the developers, they go through development cycle, they would um, go through this whole building process of building the app. And they would, and I'm going to use an example of, say, just something for data entry, a simple data entry app, and they would track it into like a SQL database or Excel spreadsheet or what have you. With the Power Apps, specifically Power Apps in this case, you can actually use, and I'm going to use, I'm going to even insert Copilot in here. You can actually say, Copilot, hey, Copilot, make me an app that does X. It will build out the tables, it will build out the code, it'll build out the user interface. And boom, you've got your app. No 10-week development cycle, no 12-week development cycle. Additionally, going back to the Power Automate and Power BI, that's your workflows, okay? But Power Automate is becoming less of a thing because now you've got some of the Copilot things that are actually going to be looking at your personal stuff. The Automate comes into play when you've got a larger group. And then Power BI is just going to be, they're used for mostly large set data reporting where you're then drilling in to get the business intelligence. It's not just report generation, it's business intelligence because you can drill down and drill into a specific set. So, how about you,
Yeah.
Abby?
I think, from a Power Apps use case, things that I've heard, like employee onboarding, right?
Mm,
Organizations are creating custom Power Apps to support HR functionalities during the onboarding, showing them like policy guides, team contracts, internal forms, things like that. Even
mm,
service requests in an organization, they're using Power Apps for that as well. Inspections in like healthcare and manufacturing to streamline data, where are things sitting at from that perspective. And then automated workflows, Power Automate's pretty cool. Workflows connecting, chatbots to your website, and, automation from that perspective, I think is really cool.
yeah.
Anybody can build an app, but it's going to be coming down to like, how do you maintain it? Are you looking at the right code? That sort of thing across the board. Also seeing like a lot of data synchronization as well. I mean, there's a lot of data in this world, and we know data analytics is super important and on the rise. And so that Power Automate case is pretty significant as well.
One other work
So
case that we see a lot of is simplified data entry, or like, what we call the
mhm.
80% data entry, because, you might have an ERP app, a SQL-based ERP app, but the people that, the field, your frontline workers, they don't need to have access to every single function. And the ERP is built to be all encompassing for every aspect of the business. All they need to
Mhm.
do is enter an order with 5 pieces of
Mhm.
information. And a low code, no code app such as, Power Apps can do that. And we've done something similar to that, where it's just doing a basic function of the business simplified that puts the data somewhere else. I've also said, like, hey, if you're keeping track of the data in Excel, a Power App is a perfect example because it puts a pretty face
Yeah.
on it and it still tracks the data.
Yeah, and those Power BI dashboards are pretty powerful as well because it
Mm,
connects everything together. So it's a great topic. Great question.
very powerful combination. Well, I'm going to ask you to summarize because we have come to the end of our time. I mean, whenever you come on, we could talk for hours,
We
and
could. Yeah,
I,
we could.
I I love having conversations with you. So, why don't you give us your final closing thoughts, kind of on you know Copilot in general and where things are headed? What do you see coming next? What do you see the
Well, we've
next?
come a long way, right? I mean, if you think back to the pandemic and how Microsoft Teams was so important to collaboration, super important. Data governance, like one thing you really should focus on, but Copilot, it's here. It's not going anywhere. AI is here. It's not going anywhere. And so I think at the end of the day, we need to embrace it. We need to learn about it. We know our competitors as customers are using it. And so what can it do for your organization to help you think outside of the box, help you grow your business, and at the end of the day, help your customer or even your customer's customer. And so don't be afraid of change. Don't be scared.
No,
Embrace the challenge. And I guarantee you, you will, at the end of the day, probably be willing to give up your daily coffee, because that's a huge statement coming from me if you know that my coffee addiction is real, but it's pretty powerful tool when you're able to use it.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, and with that, that draws our time to a close. I wanted to tell everyone, I appreciate everyone joining us here on NCI Live. Please come back and join us. If you didn't get any information that you wanted to get answered, feel free to email us at info@netcenter.net. You can look up our website at www.netcenter.net. You can also join us on any of our social media channels, or join us here on NCI Live, which when we do go live, which we do approximately every 2 weeks on both uh, uh, LinkedIn and YouTube. And if you do join us on YouTube, please click the subscribe and notification bells so that you do get notified when we do go live. Abby, as always, it's a pleasure. We do appreciate you coming on and sharing with us your wealth of knowledge and opinions and so forth. So thank you
You're
so much.
you're so welcome. You know, we're always posting on LinkedIn as well. So if you want to follow me, it's Abby Hansen, MCTS. Feel free to follow there for all the latest updates when it comes to Microsoft 365. So thanks so much, you guys. Have a great day.
Excellent. And thank you for joining us here on NCI Live.